Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Non Sequitur Nerds. Tonight, Chooms, we're going to need to dial it down a bit because we're going to be talking the resurgence of Cyberpunk. But as always, I'm Tim, joined by my buddy Ian. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, buddy, it's good to be back. Obviously, we were on a bit of a hiatus, and we have returned. Our
With a
triumphant
vengeance.
fanfares return. Everyone rejoice!
All
For the
four of
nerds
you.
are back. What?
All four of you.
Yes, exactly. All four of you. So yeah, we're coming back at you, and we're gonna be talking Cyberpunk. Kind of covering a little bit of all of the Cyberpunk stuff, but specifically we're talking kind of a Cyberpunk and the tie-in with Edge Runners, the critically acclaimed anime from Studio Trigger.
Yes. Yes, it is.
From Studio Trigger that has just recently premiered on Netflix, and it is well, I haven't watched it yet. I will admit this. However,
I've been hounding
I've
it.
avoided pretty much everything as far as spoilers go. But I have, been looking at reviews and things like that. It is one of the highest rated anime of all time.
And that's what I told Ian. Like, I watched, the first episode. I'm like, I'll check it out, see if it's any good. I ended up binging the entire thing in one sitting, and I texted you afterward, and I told you, I'm like, yeah, it's really good. You need to watch it. And I think my exact quote was, "It is one of the best anime I have ever seen."
Yep.
I am currently on my
Yep.
second watch through of it, and I still maintain it is one of the best anime I have ever.
Yes.
Oh, but
Just kind of give folks a little bit of context here. Um, IGN has this rated as a 9 out of 10. Common Sense Media 4 out of 5. The big one that everyone really knows about is obviously Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah,
Rotten Tomatoes score right now 100%
I believe it. I believe it.
critic review. Now I will qualify this and say that is critic reviews. However,
Lately, their critic reviews have been incredibly critical, though.
97%, it is a 97% audience score.
Yeah,
So effectively, we are looking at 99,
yeah,
98%.
a damn
Uh,
near perfect show.
right. Google review ratings, 4.9 stars out of 5. The thing is, if I look, there have been 986 ratings that have been submitted. I think 248 reviews. There has not been a single person who has submitted a review to go along with their 1 star rating.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe, in point of fact, actually, there is no reviews for 2 stars. There's no reviews for 1 stars. There's no reviews for 3 star
Oh
ratings.
wow.
So what this leads me to believe is these are probably people that accidentally stumbled upon this show thinking it was something else and went, "Ooh, no."
Or they're people that are just still butthurt about the game and went 1 star.
Or there's also the ever loyal Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood fan base that loves to go out and review bomb shows to try to keep FMA
Yeah.
at the very top of the all time charts.
Good
It's
luck, because
sad.
this
I
one's kind of
love,
steamrolling.
yeah, I love FMA. Don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic anime. It's beautiful. But come on, guys, really. But
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, the show just came out and it's fantastic from what
Yes.
I've heard. Obviously Tim's watched it and loved it.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
kind of the thing here is um the resurgence of interest in Cyberpunk 2077, the game by CD Projekt Red. Um, they also released some additional content that came out at the same time. You have the game, you've
Yes.
played it. Have you? I think I saw you playing it the other day.
Yes.
Have you played the new content?
I started just out of curiosity, I started a completely brand new save because it has been since before like that last like super major overhaul update that they put out. It has been since before that I played. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start off fresh and see how it goes. And honestly, new hardware that I'm running it on aside, the game runs like butter now. Like I noticed immediately from the controls are much more responsive, particularly while driving, which I know is a big issue people um haven't had any crashes, haven't had any issues with it, and just the game as a whole feel this had it released how it is now back at its original release, you probably would have seen this game shoot up the charts and stay up. I mean, I know a lot of people, it was a popular thing when it came to hate on the game. because a lot of what we were shown, I'll be honest, a lot of what we were shown was not what we got.
Right.
I mean, it even got, we've covered this before, it got so bad that Sony even pulled the game off the online for a long time, which is pretty much a death sentence for a game. But now with their continued support of their game, their continued apology and transparency of look, this is what we have, this is what we're doing, this is why things happen. And obviously, like we mentioned at the top of the show, with the anime coming out and getting old fans back interested in it, new people becoming fans of it, you're seeing the game shoot up. Like they right after the anime came out, I believe they had their highest concurrent player count on Steam of Cyberpunk, which I mean,
Hmm.
it admittedly is was probably not a huge number to top, but that just shows that given enough time and again support, bad games can turn around and come right back. And I think Cyberpunk is definitely doing that.
Yeah, and if you look at CDPR stock, it doesn't look too good. Currently, they're at about 455 a share USD. So
Ew.
if you want to get a hold of some of their stock, it might not be a bad time to do it. They were at their highs about 6 months ago at $10 a stock.
Yep.
Their all-time high was December 2020 at $31 a stock, and then that
Ew.
was right, I think, around when Cyberpunk came out, and then it
Yeah.
just tanked.
Yeah, it did. It
But
really did.
it's interesting how these kind of tie-ins can help revitalize some things, not just for like the game studio itself, but also for the production studio that works with them and thing. When they have these kind of tie-in type events. I'm not saying in any way that Studio Trigger was in any trouble.
No, they weren't.
They've consistently put out. I will say niche. They are an acquired taste. I will fully admit to this. I have some friends that absolutely love to hate on Trigger.
I know one of
Um,
them.
yeah. So, but it's nice to see them kind of get this right. And I
Oh,
think some of it as well is the fact that it was a collab. So some of the writers from CDPR worked on this with them. So it was a joint project. It wasn't just they kind of gave Trigger carte blanche to do whatever they want to.
Right.
They worked together on it, and I think that's historically I think that's where Trigger kind of has their most success in the larger fan base. Most of their stuff that's just them. They have their core fan base. They really like it and whatnot. But then when Trigger really want to part one goes out and partners with other people, then you see these massive successes for them. So
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and to that point, having seen the anime, and I'll not spoil it for Ian here or any of you that have, they did a phenomenal job of making the anime not feel, art style aside, it doesn't feel out of place. It feels like it is something else that's happening in that same world as the game because it is.
mhm,
It does take place before the game, but like I had told Ian before, you don't need to have played the game to know anything about it. I mean, there are like fun little cameos, but not a whole lot. It's not a hey, this is the anime about the game.
right,
It's an anime that just happens to take place in the same, which I think
right,
was good. Particularly the sound direction. They used a lot of music from the game. I have the full soundtrack, on my playlist, but they used a lot of music from the game in the show, again to kind of create that synergy, again showing you that it is the same world. Um, but yeah, just it's nice to me. Like any of you that have listened to the show for a while know that I've liked the game. I will admit that yes, there have been some rough spots with it, to put it lightly. But it's nice for me as a fan of the game to see it, it getting more notice and finally being to a point where the game should have been when it, or at least closer to that point.
yeah. I would concur with that. CDPR has had a good history with games,
Oh,
so
absolutely.
everyone was expecting. And we probably covered this when we talked Cyberpunk, many moons ago. But
Yeah.
everyone had really high expectations for them, and I think that's where the troubles really hit. They made some
Yep.
big promises,
Yeah.
both on features and on delivery timelines, And rather than, and I think it's a major problem, especially for people that are self-published, is it almost, I don't want to say they get too big for their britches, but they get too, I think they get too caught up in potential disappointment
Yeah.
that they wind up causing greater disappointment. I think honestly, if and I know that Cyberpunk 2077 had uh delays anyway,
Yeah, it did.
but I think
One or
had
two.
right, I think had CDPR come out and just said, we can't deliver this when we told you to. We're really sorry. We need 6 months of dedicated time for us to just work on it. I don't think gamers would have been that upset. I mean, yeah, people would have been a little salty, but
Right.
honestly, I feel like they were even more salty that they got a crap
Yeah.
experience than if they would have had to wait 6 months for a good experience.
Well, I mean, and you and I, we've discussed this before, that we're kind of in the same mindset of we would much rather a good game get delayed and be a good game than a good game get rushed and be a bad game.
Right.
And that's kind of the case of what we got is even after multiple delays, it came out, and anybody that played it can tell it was rushed. There's a lot of stuff that didn't work right, particularly on the older consoles, and even kind of jumping off of that, it was so unoptimized for what is now the last gen consoles, PS4, that the next major DLC is not coming out for the older consoles. It is PC, PS5, an Xbox Series console. It is not coming out for any of the older gens. They finally realized that their ambitions were set far too high versus what technology at the time. I mean, and now obviously people with these new consoles, they have had the updates for them. The game has ray tracing on the newer. On the PC side of things, the game is a lot more optimized now, which is saying something that if you can't optimize a game on PC, as long as these things have been around. But I digress. I know that one kind of little side note to that, with the DLC not coming out to the older console. Xbox released the Cyberpunk edition of their Xbox One X. Do you remember that?
Uh-huh.
I was reading an article that one of the things included with it was a voucher that would give you all future DLC included as part of the purchase price. So now Microsoft has to issue refunds for the value of whatever and however much it ends up costing in Microsoft currency as compensation for a product that will not exist for their older. Which, I mean, it's kind of, it seems like for every good thing that CD Projekt Red and the Cyberpunk team does, there's something else that just like bites them in the ass.
Well, I mean, that's where it kind of goes back to this whole thing with transparency and things like that. I'm not a business politics kind of guy.
Yeah,
I don't like doing that kind of politicking when it comes to business. I'm just a very straightforward kind of guy.
right.
If I can't meet a deadline, I tell you I can't meet a deadline. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you, hey man, I can't meet the deadline, but I worked on it. I revised the schedule. Here's the new deadline.
Which, I mean,
So
should have been the case. I mean, I know there was, when the game came out and there was all that hubbub about how poor it was, there was a lot of back and forth about, oh, well, the shareholders said that blah, blah, blah. Well, I bet if that is the case, I bet the shareholders are really wishing that they would have said, you know what, go ahead and push it to the next fiscal quarter.
yeah,
But
and they
hindsight,
we've talked about this before. And CDPR just really kind of overstretched
yeah,
themselves,
they really did.
especially when again they were trying to port it back to the older consoles, and just really kind of they tried to do too much with too little time, and they were just afraid to be honest about what it
Yeah,
was they were doing. Because didn't they also get pinched for requiring crunch when they were one of those
yeah,
proponents of no crunch?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then
They
it
they
came,
did.
then it came out that like the last 3 months of the game, it was just like mandatory crunch,
Yep.
which industry term is death march.
Yeah.
Uh,
Pretty
so
much.
if that tells you anything, but yeah, I mean,
Which
I'll
are
kind of go
not
back.
good working conditions at all. I mean, there's nobody that will say crunch culture should be how games are made. Nobody will ever say that in the industry.
Yeah, no, it's never going to happen. And in fact, there's a lot of places that are really pushing for stronger unionization and the like. Um, without some
As they should.
regulation and without some regulation and some guardrails and things like that, then you wind up in situations like with Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
Bad crunch, bad press, awful, very sexist working conditions. Not people friendly. I've read stories about how their QA department was just basically like run over constantly. It's rough. That said, in a side note, I've heard that the Microsoft acquisition is still moving forward. So far, there's been no major blockers,
I know
but
that
because
the
because
UK
both
was looking
companies
at it.
well, the thing is, both companies are international entities. Um, Regulatory commissions from multiple locations
Yep.
have to review it, and they all have to sign off on it. It's not just the SEC
Yeah.
in the United States saying yes, you can do this. It's the SEC. There's the UK. There's the EU. There's I think a Middle Eastern like governance board
Yeah.
that has some say in it. I think there's an Asian one that has some say in it as well. I think the only one that is officially signed off on it is the Middle Eastern regulatory board that
Yeah.
said, yeah, okay, go ahead. The rest of them are all still in review. However, everything that I've read so far is that nothing has jumped out that says, yeah, this is going to be a problem, because really what they're looking at is making sure there isn't an unfair advantage that Microsoft gains by acquiring the studio. And there's enough game studios and competition out there that it really doesn't create
Yeah.
any kind of competition. Because I mean, it would. We've kind of teased this before. There's been rumor for several months at this point that Sony's going to be acquiring Square Enix.
Right.
That if that I mean, if Microsoft can acquire Activision Blizzard, then I think Sony can acquire Square Enix.
Yeah.
It's really kind of what it boils down to.
Right.
So I have a feeling that if anybody has any fingers in any of these pots, Sony's not going to push too hard to stop this, because it could potentially put a monkey wrench in their future acquisitions as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that they got to play it pretty close to the chest.
Yeah, yeah. But we kind of non sequitur there. So
Yay.
coming back to Cyberpunk, I've been interested. I've obviously always been interested in the game. I've just never wanted to play a broken game.
Well,
So I
it's time to
haven't
try
picked
it
it up
out.
yet. Right, I haven't picked it up yet. And honestly, it's on sale right now. And I looked at it and went, I'm gonna hold out a little bit longer and see if maybe that thing comes with the Game Pass. Because why not? Right.
Maybe.
So
Maybe.
yeah. But that was a terrible timing for Tim and I both to take a small break for a drink. So please forgive us the awkward silence, which we may cut or may not cut out in post.
Oh yeah. I'm
Uh,
sure. I'm sure I'll cut that out. So now they'll have no idea what we're talking about. Like
yeah,
Cyberpunk.
exactly.
Did I miss something? But no. It's
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's it is kind of nice. Like I have been looking up things about edge runners. All of the locations in the anime you can find in the game.
Hmm.
Now, I mean, obviously, again, with the anime taking place before the game, some things may be different. They might look slightly different or whatnot. But like all those locations, you can find. Studio Trigger was pretty much given like access to the game, access to assets to be able to make that world, even more tied into it. They've
Right.
even with the most recent update to the game itself, there's actually things from the anime in the game now, so that you can kind of see how like it's like little nods and Easter eggs back to the anime. So it's tying back again, and again that's something that's giving people that are now new players of the game that have seen the anime. It's kind of that incentive of to even tie it in even. So it is
Right.
it is really nice for that. I'm glad that Cyberpunk is getting this resurgence. Like Ian said, I've been replaying it. Like I said, I had started up a new
Maybe that'll
game.
be the name of their next DLC, Cyberpunk Resurgence.
Ooh, there we go. There we go.
CDPR, come on,
Just saying.
come on.
Just saying. We're pimping you out here. Pimp us out. We're easy. Um,
But more than just that, the kind of the concept of tie-in materials, video game tie-ins. whether it's a movie or a TV show based on a video game. Typically, those haven't been. A movie that based on a video game hasn't really been all that fantastic up until like maybe Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, that was
Um,
kind of it.
that was kind of the only they broke the curse. Maybe we'll see how the Super Mario movie handles.
Apparently, they're going to be putting out a trailer here in October at some trade
Ooh,
show.
boy.
So that's
All right,
going to be interesting. Mario,
but
as any of you that have seen video game movies know, Mario kind of has a reputation.
right.
See how that goes.
But any kind of tie-in material is always nice to have because a lot of the times, especially with video games, we only get a very small slice of like this universe and this potential and this lore and things like that. I think back to like the Halo games when they first came out. We got these bits and pieces of lore in each of the games as the universe was kind of fleshed out a little bit. But then they did some tie-ins and released books.
Yep.
And they're some of the best sci-fi books I've ever read. They're fantastic.
Really,
they
really
flesh out the characters and the universe and all of the nuances and subtleties of everything that goes on in this world. There's all of the World of Warcraft books. They really kind of add depth to an already very lore-rich universe, but they add even more to that kind of universe. And there's a lot of stuff out there. They've made Legend of Zelda manga.
Yep.
I have them. They're on my bookshelf. They have Kingdom Hearts manga.
That's a story that does not need any more lore. Just saying.
It doesn't need any more lore, but it needs explanation.
Yeah.
It needs explanation because it doesn't always make a whole lot of sense. But
True.
There's other instances of expanding lore and things like that through like television shows, even in video games. Even if you look at like Tron, Disney's Tron. They did Tron, and they did the sequel movie several years ago, and then they did Tron, the TV show, the animated TV show with Elijah Wood playing in it, and Bruce Boxleitner returned as the voice of Tron. That really kind of helped flesh out a little bit more of that universe and like why it all existed. And from what I'm hearing, they're getting a video game.
Well, I mean, it did have a game, but I mean,
they're getting a new one. They're getting a new game, and I think I've heard from the rumor mill that they've greenlit a sequel to Tron Legacy. So
because that was supposed to come out years ago. They never officially announced it, but like
the Tron Legacy very much sets up for a potential sequel.
Absolutely.
It ends in a way that is very open to a sequel. It doesn't necessarily leave anything a lot hanging, but it does have an opportunity. I believe the poor performance of the movie initially led them to go, no.
Yeah.
But now it seems like there's kind of this resurgence of tie-ins and wanting to kind of expand that thing. And as we all know, Disney likes to milk their IPs.
Yeah.
So
they do.
Anyway. So as far as Cyberpunk goes, again, having not watched the series, I feel like they should. Personally, I feel like they should leave it. No more series. If they're going to do another series, it needs to be an unrelated.
Yes, I would agree.
Same universe, same city if you want to, but new characters, just off on its own. Don't try to continue what you have.
See, I would agree with that. Mostly because like the world of Cyberpunk, for those of you that don't know, was originally a tabletop RPG. With that, like, Ian here, he's in my D&D group. You can speak to it that like you can play D&D 5 times, 5 different characters, completely different setting, even if it takes place in the same world.
Yep.
For Cyberpunk, I feel that would be true to its completely different. Have it take place in Night City, which is kind of the big thing for Cyberpunk. Have it take place in Night City, entirely new story. Season 3, entirely new thing. That I feel would be not only fitting, but also a true homage to Cyberpunk's. It's a separate campaign, if you will.
Yeah, I think they need to be very focused and pointed on what it is that they're going to try to do, if they're going to actually even try to do anything else. Again, I would be perfectly happy if they just stopped here.
As would I. Having seen it, as would I.
Because I don't want them to potentially besmirch Cyberpunk nor Trigger in a way, or CDPR in a way that could come back and hurt them. You have a good thing right now. You have done a good thing.
Yes.
Don't ruin it.
Yep.
So you've revitalized interest in Cyberpunk. I imagine that's probably was one of the major goals, besides just providing this awesome series. So I've heard.
Yes, it is. It's so good. So good.
You know, you've revitalized that. You've obviously blown expectations out of the water. It increased the reputation of Trigger even more than they were. So, you know, I think they need to be very, very cognizant of these things, and not, I would say, not get too inflated, too self-inflated.
Don't go super gung ho on it.
Yeah, or super Gurren Lagann.
There we go. Another series that needs no continuation.
Yes, correct. Mostly because it doesn't really have a way to continue. I mean, it could, but really, Anyway. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Basically, the general summary of this is, if you have not gone out and watched Cyberpunk Edgerunners, please go and do so. It's on Netflix. There are 10 episodes, about 23, 24 minutes apiece. So it really doesn't take a whole heck of a lot of your time, but it will be well worth the watch. I plan on taking care of that here very soon myself.
Good.
So that I can be among the many.
Do it.
And then if you haven't checked out, if you liked Cyberpunk Edgerunners, then maybe it's time for you to go and check out Cyberpunk 2077 if you have not done so already.
And even if you have, honestly, it is worth hopping back into.
Yeah, I'll take Tim's word for it there. Obviously, I haven't played it yet, but much like they did with Valheim, where they released a bunch of content, maybe if you have it, you should start a new character and play from the beginning, because you never know what some of the new stuff is and the nuances are. If you're just going to continue a playthrough rather than doing it from scratch.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Again, I think with that, we will go ahead and wrap up. Thank you for sticking with us. Again, we are back. We will be putting out regular content again moving forward. As always, we will try to update our social media, which we've been negligent of the last several weeks.
Yeah.
But we'll get back on that. So you can find us on Facebook.com/non-sequitur-nerds, YouTube.com/non-sequitur-nerds, Twitter @non-sequitur-nerd. Twitch.tv/non-sequitur-nerds. Not that we really do anything there right now, but maybe we will here in the near future.
There we go.
And then, of course,
like
big
in
shout
the
out.
year 2077.
Heyo, we're gonna be dead by then.
Yeah, probably. The world's on fire, Ian.
Yes. And then again, always thank you to our hosting site and sponsors, Anchor.fm, which is part of Spotify. All right. Well, I think that will do that for us. So one more time, thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time on Non Sequitur Nerds. As always, for the nerds, I'm Ian.
And I'm Tim. Night, everybody.